I wish it had not come to this. So much death, so much anger.
What's done is done.
You're leaving now.
What's up guys, Veteran Gamer here, and today's review is Assassin's Creed Valhalla. This latest iteration in the franchise is probably the biggest game of 2020. Personally, this is my third entry into the franchise, my previous two being the main Assassin's Creed game as well as Black Flag. This game totally blew me away. My playthrough, which runs about roughly 57 hours, while still leaving quite a bit left on the table, makes it the biggest game that I've played of 2020. And judging by the people that I've talked to, some of my friends who vlogged over 170 hours completing this game, this is probably the best content per dollar game of 2020 without question. And in a day and age in the industry where shortchanging content seems to be more and more common, this was actually quite refreshing. So 57 hours was my playthrough, and it was absolutely breathtaking front to back. Running on PS5, which also seems to be the theme of these games, it has two graphical modes, fidelity and performance. The fidelity mode runs at a native 4K 30 frames per second, while the performance mode drops the resolution but gives you a solid 60 frames per second. This game is absolutely gorgeous in 4K, and even though the frame rate does take a hit and bringing it down to 30 frames, I would recommend playing it if you have a 4K display, especially a large 4K display, because some of the scenes that you will see throughout the game and the beauty that is to be admired is absolutely incredible. Although throughout my playthrough I prefer to play on performance mode because I'm a frame rate whore, you can't go wrong either way. I mean, when you see what you're in store for from a presentation standpoint, it's simply breathtaking. I mean, whether you're sailing the open waters on your boat with your crew, listening to the music and dialogue in the background, or whether you're just climbing the prototypical Assassin's Creed-esque tower, revealing the map towards your view, it is simply outstanding. The visuals that you constantly get put to your eyes, I can't say enough good things about it. It's incredible. One of the best looking games of 2020, hands down. Thankfully, when it comes to Valhalla, the game plays as well as it is pretty. This game, the combat system, although revamped from my last impression of the system, the new stamina, the combat, the way you can parry, it's like they did a little bit of Demon's Souls, a little bit of what Assassin's Creed's true identity is with being stealth. Anything is at your disposal. What I love about the combat and the gameplay is if you want to do the pure stealth, picking guys off at a distance, hiding in the shadows, you can play that way. You want to go barbaric and just go, swords blazing with your arrows, firing, just going nuts, that's totally viable too. The progression system and the way you customize your character is probably one of the best systems I've ever played in an action RPG, without question. What makes the system so great is as you level up your main character and you go through the skill trees and the nodes, you will eventually grab gear and pieces of armor and weapons. You may sit there and level your character one way, only to find new pieces of armor and be like, well, this doesn't work with my playstyle. Well, you can go back to the grid and literally undo any upgrade that you've previously done at no cost. Respeccing in this game is a snap of a finger. At any time you can respec your character to change your combat style to suit the gear that you have chosen for your character. And when it comes to the actual gear itself, Valhalla is just littered with different types of gear sets, different types of weapons, each with their pros and cons. You want a big two-handed weapon, you want to wield two big-handed weapons, you want to go with a traditional axe and a shield, by all means. The luxury of it is that you can flip this on the fly. Just be mindful that when it comes to actually upgrading your gear, resources to upgrading them, especially in the later parts of the game, become more and more scarce. So you might want to find a set and a style that suits your playstyle, but just be wary that when it comes to leveling your character, there's a lot of freedom. Not only do you gain all this freedom through the grid as well as your gear, but abilities that you actually learn are learned in twofold. Some of them are just given to you through the grid. Other abilities you actually have to find through books of knowledge. These books of knowledge are hidden throughout the world. You find them and they will unlock a new ability for your character. Abilities could range from being able to do a heavy jump smash to another harpoon, where you can harpoon a guy and pull him towards you. It varies from ability to ability. There's arrow abilities and then there's melee abilities. You find them throughout the world. Just the overall progression system in this game is one of the best I've ever seen, and it definitely needs to be praised. But that being said, Assassin's Creed Valhalla is most definitely not perfect. The game, although very well polished and complete, there are bugs. Most notably, not game-breaking bugs, but bugs that you can't help but notice. As you can see on screen now, you see this guy just merely bouncing in the water during a dialogue sequence. It was funny, but it does break the immersion. Another bug that you will notice is sometimes through dialogue, the mouths of characters do not move. And that breaks the immersion of the main game, but it's nothing to gripe about. The only other issue that I've had during my playthrough of Valhalla was the actual gameplay loop. So your story follows you and your brother Sigurd throughout the story. But the issue is that when you get to your main clan, you get to your main settlement, you have to build allies. So you go from region to region throughout the game, expanding your alliances. While each region has its own little story and missions to follow, you can end up going 2 or 3 sections of the map, and none of those stories actually move your main character story forward. It's just building alliances, gaining XP, but the main story doesn't actually move. And this can be problematic because for a completionist, some of these sections, you'll be there for 4 hours. And then you think about it, if you do 2 of them before the story even moves, you've played about 10, 15 hours of the game, and your main character, in terms of a story perspective, hasn't moved forward at all. So for people who are hell-bent on like a narrative-driven experience, the pacing of the game gets staggered because of this. It's my only real gripe with the gameplay and the way the story plays out is just the pacing of the story is intentionally staggered. It's like they did it to make the game artificially longer than what it needed to be. I would have much rather have just say, hey, these are the sections of the map you need to go to move the main story. Have you do it without any sort of like level grind, and then just push it forward. And if you want to do side stuff, have that as an option. The fact that you have to go through section to section, constantly doing these little stories that have no bearing on your main story, it drags the game down, for me at least. And it's something that I noticed. I didn't notice it at first, but I noticed around the 40-hour mark when I was like, this is just getting repetitive. So other than that, this game overall is a fantastic game front to back. I truly commend Ubisoft for the work that they've done. Like I said, this is the 3rd Assassin's Creed game that I've played. The best one without question. The graphics, the animation, the voice acting, the dialogue, the music, everything about it is outstanding. It does have some pacing issues. There are some bugs and glitches that will break the immersion, but nothing overly game-breaking. To me, this is definitely a Game of the Year contender for 2020, and I'm giving Assassin's Creed a 9 out of 10.